Good evening. Welcome to another episode of Aging with Attitude, Channel 21, servicing the Greater Charlotte metro market. Thank you for joining us here tonight. My name is Phil Koch. I'm the host. And tonight we have a guest, Katie Beth Caswell. Is that right?
Yes.
Katie Beth is with the Urban Ministries Center here in Charlotte, and she's going to tell us and teach us a little bit more about the Urban Ministry. Welcome.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Great. Well, tell us a little bit more about Urban Ministry, where it's located, and how you ended up getting involved.
So Urban Ministries Center is located on North College Street, the very end. You just take it all the way down and it kind of runs into our parking lot. I got involved. I worked at a similar agency right upon graduation in Boone, North Carolina, and I was interested in going into AmeriCorps, which is how I got placed at Urban Ministries Center. So I'm here, and my main goal is to recruit and train new volunteers. So that's kind of how I got involved. It's a year-long position, so I'll only be here through February. So it's a lot to take on in just a year's time. Nobody had really worked on recruitment at all until I came about. So I'm here to share about how people can get involved at Urban Ministries Center. So there's multiple sites. Our main site is the North College Street one, but we also have Moore Place, which is permanent housing, and it's located off-site, off of Graham Street. So it's not far. It's probably walking distance, I would say. And we're located near many other agencies that work with homelessness, so it's really a convenient location for everything we do and the people we serve. So
Well, that's great. How many staff are now at both centers?
It's about 40 people, give or take. We just recently have hired a few new social workers to do case management and take on different cases and things like that. So I would say around 40, maybe a little more or less at this point. So, but that's between all the different sites, all programs and the 2 different sites and everything. So.
Is there an urban ministry in every city? I don't even know. Is it just Mecklenburg County?
A lot of people ask that. They wonder, because there's other agencies in different cities that are called Urban Ministry, but we are separate. We're our own thing. It's not like we're connected. It seems to be like there's a similar agency like Urban Ministry Center in most cities, but we're our own place, privately funded and all that kind of stuff. So.
And it's county funded, state funded?
Most of our funding comes from private donors. We have about 135 churches that really support us in Charlotte. So most of our funding comes from churches and private donors, and very little of our funding comes from federal or state grants, which is not usually the case with nonprofits. So we have a lot of support, and a lot of it's 20 years now we've been around. So I think that just over the years, a lot of networking and building up partnerships has really what has kept us on our feet for the most part. Wow,
I did not know that. So tell me some of the services that Urban Ministry offers within both sites.
So our main site, we consider it a homeless day center. So it's not a shelter. A lot of times people think we're a shelter. We offer things like lunch every single day, 365 days a year we have lunch. During the week we offer other services like counseling, and that is mostly volunteer based, and our counselors are trained to connect the clients with other resources, so helping them get their ID, helping them get vouchers for prescriptions and set up doctor's appointments. We give them bus passes for their first couple weeks of work if they recently got a new job. So things like that, just keeping them on their feet and helping them, make that progress out of homelessness. That's what our counselors do. Then we also have a shower facility and a laundry facility for people who need that. People use our address to get their mail there, so a lot of times, that's a big project in itself. We get mail for close to 1,000 people use our address.
Really?
And not everybody who uses our address, it means that they're homeless, but they could be living with a friend and they don't feel comfortable their mail getting sent there and that kind of thing. So a lot of people use our address to get their mail, and so helping people get IDs, a lot of things like that. And then we also have case managers on site, and they're usually connecting with the most chronically homeless individuals, so people we see there regularly, and that they're literally on the streets or in tents. And they're reaching out and trying to figure out what that missing piece is that's keeping them, that keeps us, we keep seeing them. So what's going on? Why are you still here? A lot of people, it's a temporary thing, and we see them for a couple weeks and then they're back on their feet or whatever the case may be. And so we figured that we need people actually reaching out to these individuals. And that's a fairly new program, so I don't have a lot of like numbers or anything to tell you how well that's been working, but we think that it's going to make a great impact.
But the people they're reaching out to are people that are not utilizing the benefits anymore, but are still homeless, or they are now not homeless and are in a home environment somewhere and working, or
the people that they're reaching out to are usually the ones who are still on the streets, and we keep seeing them. They are using some of our resources, but we are still seeing them. So what we like to say is we're meeting them where they are. So none of the cases are obviously the same, but a lot of times they have to do with mental health issues or addiction. So people who've been on the streets for years, or a year, however long, it almost becomes like normal to them, and that's what they're used to. So that's why we have these caseworkers who are reaching out and trying to let them know what's out there, and that this isn't normal and this doesn't have to be this way. And a lot of them just don't have that advocate, and they've lost hope. And so just really meeting people where they are. Some people, it just depends on the case and what they need. And so it's not really, we don't ever use the term like we're fixing people or we're doing the work, more that we're empowering them and giving them the tools to do it themselves.
Right.
So, yeah.
Now what's different between that and the other site?
So More Place is our other site, and it's an 85 unit housing facility. And so on site, it's the units, and then we have caseworkers who do permanent, the housing is called permanent supportive housing. So they live there, and then they have caseworkers. It's very light casework usually because they're housed now, but they do, each of them are assigned caseworkers, and they meet as needed type thing. And we're adding, I believe it's 35 more units this coming year.
Wow.
And yeah, it's growing really fast, and it's part of our Housing First model. Charlotte's taken on the Housing First model, and on ending homelessness, some people aren't familiar with it, but it's basically that you house people first and then you fix the other issues. Everything else kind of falls into place. And I think a good way to look at it is the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You can't really reach your fullest potential when you don't have your basic necessities like food and shelter.
Right.
So it's proven to work. UNC Charlotte has recently done a research study on More Place, people before they were housed at More Place and then 2 years into More Place. And it saves everyone, taxpayers, money, because they're not in emergency rooms, they're not in prisons and jails, and they're housed. And so even though we are having to spend money on building the housing and paying the caseworkers, it still is much more affordable for everyone.
So for that additional 35 beds, is that an add-on to More Place now, or do you already have the room?
It's going to be an add-on.
Add-on.
It's going to be an add-on.
And is it different type of funding coming in for that, or is it the same private donors?
Most of it's still private donors, yes. I mean, I think that there is other funding, but for the most part, it's still the same private donor.
Do you have, I mean, I don't even know, do you have a lot of the nonprofits that I've seen in Charlotte have a fundraising event or something like that? Do you have such a thing at Urban Ministry?
Yes, we actually just had our, it's always in November, and our annual luncheon, and we invite businesses and different, all different people. We usually have table hosts, and then they're in charge of inviting people to sit at their table. Right. We kind of share about Urban Ministries Center, share some of the stories from that past year of lives that were impacted and changed and what we've done in the past year, and serve lunch. And that's where a lot of our funding comes from, our annual luncheon. Yeah. So that, and then we also do honor cards at Christmas time. So we have an art program at Urban Ministries Center where our clients utilize the art studio. And we pick, they kind of do like not a competition, but they'll all like do something, and then somebody gets picked for the honor card that year. So our honor cards are done by an artist from Urban Ministries Center, and you can, donate so much money and you get so many cards, and then you give it, as a gift to someone or send it to a friend or whatever, and say, in honor of, we donated money to Urban Ministries Center, and that's kind of
nice.
like a gift. Yeah. So that's another big fundraiser that we have.
So if Joe Smith, for lack of a better name, comes into the center tomorrow and says, gee, I'd like to get a meal, tell me the process that Urban Ministry, do you screen the individuals? Do you ask them questions? Is there an interview process? And then who, to the next level of sleeping in the 85 beds, is there a wait list there? How do they get selected to go there?
There is a huge wait list at Moore Place. I'll go ahead and say that.
Okay.
And it is permanent supportive housing. So people that are already there, they can stay there as long as needed. Now people who do have an income, whether it be SSI or whatever the case may be, a certain percentage of their income goes to stay there.
Okay.
If you don't have income, then you're not paying anything to stay there. But as far as just a day-to-day basis on our main campus, people coming in to utilize our services, there is not a screening process. Anyone can eat lunch. Anyone can take showers, use our laundry facilities, which, usually unless you're actually on the streets, people wouldn't be coming to do that. Same thing for counseling for the most part. But as far as we do have a program called SABRE. It's a substance abuse program. That's referral based. You have to be referred by another staff member within Urban Ministries Center. So usually that's somebody like a caseworker who's working with somebody and they think that they need the substance abuse program, then they'll refer them. And you also have to be referred by a staff member to live in Moore Place. So Moore Place isn't like your typical emergency shelter where you stay, and it's more of an indefinite, permanent solution. So you definitely are referred. It has to be, I'm not one of the social workers who decides, but you have to meet a lot of criteria in a way to be picked to be put on that list. Not like a lot, but do you think that they'll strive in this environment? Because some people aren't ready yet to be in that structured of an environment and that type of thing. So, a lot of stuff goes into it, but.
Are most of the people that come, Charlotte's such a transient city now, it really has become that. Are a lot of people coming in from out of town and then haven't found, they're going through some tough times and they come to the center having recently relocated to the area, or they've been here for years and in and out of the
I see a lot of both. I definitely see that a lot of people aren't from here. Yeah. Whether they've been here for several years and just hit bad times or not, I don't know, but they aren't originally from here. I see a lot of people from out of state. And people have that idea, well, I'll just, move to Charlotte. Charlotte has jobs, don't know why they would think that, but, and then they come here and they're kind of stuck. So we do have limited funding that is for, we call it's Traveler's Aid. So it's funded through Traveler's Aid. And so if we can divert somebody from becoming homeless with that money, then they kind of qualify for it. We're not just going to say, we've had people that say, oh, I just want to start over somewhere else. Can you pay for me to move, to Vegas or whatever? We wouldn't do that. But if somebody says, my mom lives in Ohio, and she's already said she'd take me and my 2 kids in, and we'll get them on the phone, talk to people, assess the situation, and if that means that we can send you to Ohio and that's one less homeless person or homeless family in Charlotte, then it's worth the money. Yeah. So we do fund on that basis, but I do find that a lot of people aren't from Charlotte.
Do people go through, is there a doctor on site? Does anybody go through any kind of medical screening?
We have a nurse that's there 4 days a week, and she can refer to doctors and write, and she can't write prescriptions, but she can people to the doctor to get a prescription. It's really nice having the nurse on site. We've even had emergencies, and it's great that she's there to and so she's there 4 days a week. She used to be there 5, but some things have changed, and she can only be there 4. But we also have a medical social worker who is reaching out and getting people's doctor's appointments and you know, getting them assessed for mental health issues and things like that. A lot of times people have never even been evaluated, and you know that they need, you know, to be evaluated on medication or something, and that's like one of the big things that we've noticed keeps, you know, people, the chronically homeless, is that they're not being treated for their illnesses. So we do have a medical social worker who does that as well.
Are there children at the Ministry Center in
Yes.
the more long-term living?
We don't have children at Moore Place because the way it's set up, the housing is just like a suite. It's open space, kitchen, like living area. It's not big enough for families, but we do have, there are other agencies in Charlotte that work specifically with families. We do see kids on site sometimes. Especially since we're open during like working hours and school hours, when we do see kids, it kind of, you know, we're like, what's going on? Why aren't they at school? So we usually will kind of sit them down immediately and be like, what's going on? You know, the kids need to be in school, that kind of thing. But we don't see a whole lot of kids.
Yeah.
For the most part, it's mostly individuals that just, it's not, we don't handle a lot of family homelessness, I would guess, because we usually refer them to other agencies that specialize in that.
So what other type of agencies are you in collaboration with, discussions with in Charlotte?
So the Salvation Army Women's Shelter, and they take in families, and they also do just emergency shelter for women. Then we also have the men's shelter, which is just men. And then there's Charlotte Family Housing that focuses on housing families. Really a lot of different agencies. We work with there's a homeless resource center that's on College Street as well, and they basically, there's a couple social workers who work for the county that are placed there who are also reaching out to homeless individuals and families. But then we also have, it's a nice big kitchen and like area for churches to come and utilize that space for dinner and that type of thing to serve meals.
So you're dealing with other churches locally in the Charlotte area as well?
Oh yes.
Different denominations.
And then another big program that we do, and it's a nationwide program, and we just took it on in Charlotte, is Room in the Inn. I don't know if you've heard of Room in the Inn, but we're the site that organizes it. But what it is they at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, clients will come in and check in for Room in the Inn if they have nowhere else to stay, and it's only in the winter months, so December through March. And churches have assigned nights. I don't know exactly how it works, but they have assigned nights where they take in so many, just as many as they can stay. Some churches can take in like 4, some can take in like 15. And they bring them back to their church with their church van and feed them dinner. They stay the night there and feed them breakfast, bring them back to the center in the morning. So it's very much just strictly emergency, like you have nowhere else to go, but you know, we don't want people sleeping on the streets in, you know, 20-degree weather. So that program, it started in Nashville, Tennessee actually, and it's kind of, it's like a, you know, Asheville I know has taken it on, and we've taken it on. So it's become a very well-known thing.
So they would stay at the Moore under that program?
They would stay. They would stay at the church.
At the church, sorry.
They would stay at the church, whoever took it on that night. So they were staying at all different churches throughout the Charlotte area. And some churches take on, I think, a couple nights throughout the, you know, they might have 1 or 2 nights a week, and then some churches, they only take on like 1 or 2 nights a month. It just depends on their commitment that they want to give.
Right. So what happens, is there anything that a participant would be forced to leave? For example, if they had a weapon.
Oh, yes.
Would that be, you know, or they were taking drugs and it was proven they were taking drugs, or no? Is that not kick them out?
Well, for our basic services, which are just, you know, like lunch and showers and laundry, I mean, people may be high. I don't know, you know, when they come in for those services, as long as they're not causing problems, then they can come and eat lunch. But as far as if they were using drugs visibly, like we could see them, or if they have a weapon on them, or violence of any sort, if they got into a fight on site, yes, they would be asked to leave. Usually for that type of thing, they're banned from property. I mean, there are other things. If you're just being loud and disrespectful to staff members, we'll say you can't, come back next week. Like, we don't want to see you for a week. Like, you
Right.
can't come in here and act like that. But we do have an officer. We, Charlotte Mecklenburg Police Department, we pay to have an officer on site while we're open. So we always have an
Really?
officer on site. And some people think, oh my gosh, as a volunteer or something, they see that and they're alarmed, but we mostly just have it as he's never really used very often, but just his presence makes a difference, him being there.
In
or
uniform?
her.
Is he in full uniform?
He's in uniform.
Uh-huh.
I mean, and it's usually, we have about 4 or 5 who are our usuals who do it, but sometimes if they're out of town, we'll have a new person. But so, I mean, they're kind of like a part of our staff because we see them throughout the week, and
Right.
and the clients know them too. And so it's not like a authoritative relationship where
Right.
they're scared, but they know that he's there, and I think that it does make a difference, and I appreciate it. So,
So how, for the viewers out there and their families,
Mm-hmm.
how can they get involved as volunteers?
okay.
What are you looking for?
Yeah.
What are the different methods they can help volunteer for Urban Ministry?
So we are mostly volunteer ran. I mean, if you think about it, 40 staff members for 2 sites, and some of them are even county social workers that really don't even work for us.
Right.
We still need a lot of volunteer help. So on a day-to-day basis, we basically are ran our showers and laundry facilities. We have check-in points where you sign up and you're monitoring the list. That's volunteers run that. The front desk and answering the phones, all of that's ran by volunteers. All of that type of work. So it's very much staff-like positions.
Yeah.
And because it's during working hours, we mostly get stay-at-home moms or people who have retired. And it is a long-term commitment because if you think about all that you're doing, it takes a while to learn all of it. So, we usually expect people to stick around, and that is what we've found is that people do stick around. They love it. It's a really good environment to work. The staff is
Right.
very supportive, and they keep coming back. Like I was saying, the counselors that I was telling you about, they're connecting, helping people get their ID, helping people get transportation to and from work, all that kind of stuff is volunteers. So it's a meaningful experience, and I think that's what volunteers get to take home with them, is that they feel like they've accomplished something. They've formed relationships with people. People start to know their names, our clients do, and it's fulfilling, and that's what all of our volunteers say, is that they really do. Not only do they get a meaningful experience, but they're also able to get more skills. And so that's what a lot of college students who come in, it looks really good to be able to say, I've done counseling and I've helped people get their birth certificates all the way from New York, and it's a job. So I think that volunteers can get a lot out of it, and those are individual opportunities. We also have group opportunities like sandwich making for the soup kitchen. You can serve drinks during lunch. We have gardening that a lot of times we have a garden that a lot of our food from the kitchen comes from our garden. So, people, if that's an interest, groups will come and help with gardening and things like that as well. So,
Is it common to have, do you have a Christmas dinner or Thanksgiving dinner where you need even more volunteers for that particular night? Or
we usually do need a lot around the holidays, but we don't have trouble filling that.
Yeah.
We actually get an overwhelming amount of requests to help volunteer around the holidays. And, we always say, well, we're full, but we're open 365 days a year, and we'd love your help any other day. But we do fill up really fast. And when we start getting calls for Thanksgiving and Christmas to help for volunteering, we get calls like in September probably, or before.
But even if they
requesting to do
couldn't
it.
help, if you had more volunteers that you even needed during the holidays, I have no doubt with all the different groups that you're associated with,
Oh, yeah.
also nonprofits, you could probably direct them in that area
Oh
as
yeah,
well,
we
right?
can. Yeah, we can direct them to other agencies that probably need help as well.
And I would imagine if somebody wasn't sure
Mm-hmm.
whether they could make a long-term commitment but wanted to kind of sample volunteering out, they could probably do
And we
that.
do. We try to accommodate all volunteer needs.
Right.
We can't always, just because our facilities aren't huge. But if somebody does just need a few hours, we'll have them come in on a Saturday and help us at the desk when it's just a little less crowded and we don't need as many volunteers. So it's not as much training, I guess you would say, and we're kind of able to help out. So we do try to accommodate everyone because we want people to you know, we don't want to be that agency that turns volunteers away. But most of our positions are more long-term, but we do have other ways you can get involved if you're not able to commit to long-term. So,
are there any activities that take place at the center? Any, do they get involved in backgammon or other things that happen at the center? Is it pretty much housing and providing meals?
That's for the most part, but we also have a program called Community Works that is ran out of Urban Ministries Center, and it's art, soccer, choir. We even have like a little writing club, like poetry type club, and it's just kind of a way to start allowing these clients who've just had no structure in their life, and who are talented and want to be involved, a way for them to get involved, to kind of build community amongst, you know, our staff and the people who are on the streets with them. And it's a way for them to start having somebody hold them accountable, like, you know, well, you weren't at soccer practice, what's going on? You know, just to have some sort of structure and somebody relying on them and building that up again is, I think that's what people get out of the Community Works program. And so we do need volunteers as well. Yeah. For that.
What is the greatest volunteer needs out there right now? I mean, right now in this.
Our greatest volunteer need right now is in our basic services. So showers, laundry, front desk, counseling, those things I was talking about. Just because it takes about 12 to 15 volunteers a day to run that. And that is more long-term, but you kind of get to decide how often. If you say you're going to be there, we depend on you, but you can come in. We have some people who come in only the first Monday of every month, so it's really up to you how often you want to be there.
I would think it's very fulfilling for a volunteer to go in, and also I've done some volunteering myself, my family has, and instead of, sadly, at times categorizing certain individuals, when you get to know them individually, it's much more, you get a better understanding of who they are, as opposed to saying that person was homeless. Now you say John has a story.
They have a story. Everybody has a story. That's what we like to think of, is that everyone has a story. So well,
that's very important, and I can't thank you enough, Katie Beth Caswell for coming on tonight's show. Katie is from the Urban Ministry, and as she described, there's two sites, the main site and Moore site, correct?
Moore Place.
Moore Place, sorry. They're always looking for volunteers, so if anybody's out there is interested, please reach out to Katie Beth Caswell for volunteer opportunities and money. They're always needing money. So thank you, Katie Beth, for coming on the show. Thank you all for viewing Aging with Attitude. We appreciate your time, and come back and see us again.